Good morning, everyone. This is Patrick Halstead at Qdabra Software, and we're happy to have you here for this week's webinar. It's so great to see so many familiar faces here in the attendees list. Today we're talking about how to create forms that talk to other forms, and we have a couple polls to begin with just to kind of see where you're at in terms of your form adoption. So I'm going to launch this first poll. This is a quick question to you to ask how many forms you're currently using or have developed, and we'll give this a few more seconds here. We've got about 40% participation at this point, and it looks like the number, there's quite a nice little distribution here, but with 70% of you voted, it looks like we've got about 40% in the 5 to 10 range, about 20% in the 11 to 25, 20 in the 26 to 50, and also 20 in the 1 to 4. So 71%. Thank you very much for that. And we're going to ask one more question here, and that is, how do you connect your forms today? This is kind of a teaser to discuss, to the discussion that follows. We'll be talking about all these three techniques, and just wanted to, maybe you don't. I probably should have put a fifth answer here, which is none of the above, but I forgot. So we'll give that a few more seconds here, and that's at 40%. Looks like a lot of you are choosing either the first one, 33%, or the last one, 44%. Thanks for that quick poll. And so today our topic is connecting forms, and there are several reasons why we want to do this. Number one, we want to reduce the amount of time it takes your users to fill out a form. And so we're going to show an example of a pre-fill of a form that pulls data from another form to assist in the rapid entry of data into the new form. And then we also sometimes want to clone forms. We want to clone an existing copy. Well, I just like to, you can start with the existing form, but maybe it has a workflow. So it doesn't make sense to just open that XML or that InfoPath form or the SharePoint form. It doesn't make sense to open it and just as is, because it may have some state information in it. So we want to be able to clone a data from that form, though, into our existing new form. That's technique number two here. And then we have talked about this in the past, but the third technique is I'm going to basically give an overview of the ways you copy data into your form when that data can be complex. So we talk about lists, we talk about forms, we also talk about databases. I'll give you a pointer to another webinar we did about a year ago showing how to copy repeating data. I'm not going to do that demo today because we've got a lot of other demos and I want to focus on the other ones, but I'll talk about it. The fourth thing then is pushing data out of your form. So when we did the poll, one of the questions was, do you want to push data out of your forms? And a lot of you answered yes to that, but there is a scenario here, and typically when you're dealing with a form and you want to capture some other information, for example, like a suggestion, a feedback box, then we would want to create a separate suggestions form for that, a child form that's not part of the main form. And I'll show how to do that. I'll give you we have a lab on that we're sending to you that you can do offline. And I'll also show you how it works in the demo. And then finally, we'll talk about how to create links that open forms. And these links can work on mobile. We also have a document on this, a new blog post by Jennifer Lindsay. So that's it for today's agenda. Now, looking at ways in which we connect forms. This is kind of a schematic of what I'm going to show you today. In the middle, we have our form, our InfoPath form, SharePoint form. And I'm not going to talk today about the 900-pound gorilla in the room, which is, when is Microsoft going to stop supporting InfoPath? Well, that's 2025, 2026, sometime in that next, 8 or 9 years. So don't worry about it today. We do have a replacement. It's called Forms Viewer. We've been calling it InfoPath 2016. Works on-prem, works in the cloud, and it's free. So if you're interested in that as a migration option, we would love to talk to you, but that's a different webinar. We've done many webinars on that topic in the past. So that's the 900-pound gorilla. We'll just say hello. But today's webinar, we're focusing on connecting forms. And the ways we do that are we connect forms from, we want to pull data from a library that's already, where you already submitted data. You may also want to pull data from an existing XML form, so it might be more complex than a table. So a library the promoted properties appear in a two-dimensional table. With the second option down below here, pulling data from a SharePoint form, XML data, that may be hierarchical in nature. It may be more than just a two-dimensional structure. It might be an existing XML file. So there might be repeating data in there. There might be more complex structures. And then we also may want to pull data from SQL. We have techniques for doing that. We're not going to demo those, but we've done that in the past. So if you're interested in this last arrow here, the SQL arrow, don't hesitate to mention it in the after webinar survey form, and I will contact you and show you a demo of we have a web service that queries SQL that allows you to do this quite easily. But that's not part of this demo. The demo, obviously the webinar demos today are marked by these checkboxes. We're also going to show then, so on the intake side, we've got pulling data from a library, pulling data from an existing XML form to do the clone. And then on the outtake, we've got pushing data into a child form that's of a different type, pushing data into of course, the same form. That's not very interesting. That's just submit to SharePoint. And then finally creating a link that works in email. So that's a schematic of what we're going to be showing you today. And first then, let's talk about the first demo, which I'm going to jump to in a moment. We're going to basically save some data from a section in a form and use it to pre-fill another form. So let's take a look at that. And so here's I've got a couple different demo screens here, and hopefully. Okay, so here's an expense report form, and this form, I'm showing this in Chrome. It is in the Forms viewer, so it's not in InfoPath Form Services. This is working off of our 365 site, but it's an InfoPath form. I'm going to show the form here in the Designer first. Here's the form in the Designer. We are creating a Forms Designer product, a browser-based product that will work with Forms Viewer to allow you to change forms in the browser, just in case the form InfoPath 2013 Designer stops working at some point in the future. We do have a replacement coming for you this summer on that. It will also be free. But here's the form in the InfoPath 2013 Designer, and you can see that I've added this copy existing checkbox to my section here. So this is a standard form that we demo a lot, the expense report form. What I want to do is when they select this checkbox, I want to show them the existing forms using a drop-down and then allow them to copy it. So let's take a look at that. So here's the form running. If I click on copy existing, it's going to give me a checkbox. I've got one existing form. It populates that data, right? Now let's actually open it up again, and I'm going to, obviously we could open it from the library too, but let me just fill it out here, and let me just put in some other information. Jimmy's been helping me this morning with this. We had a bug at the end of the webinar, but he's our dev lead in Kyoto, and he is, of course, our Forms viewer and Forms Designer developer. And I'm just going to fill this out here, and I'll put in an expense report. Business purpose is going to be, let's say, Microsoft conference, and you don't necessarily need to type in all this information, but I do want to submit it. And let's say that he went to the conference today, and we'll just say it's training or other, and he had to take a train or something like that. 99 bucks. Okay, so we'll submit this, and if I open the form up again, what you'll see is we'll see the now we've got two different options to copy from, and both of them, if Jimmy's information is now copied into the form, and I could also replace it with mine. So this is a quick technique to copy data from existing forms. How did we do this? So you can see here that I've got these two sections. I've got one section if they want to type it in, and I've got another section if they want to select from the existing. Typically, what you're going to do is you're going to have these two sections that have the same exact field in them, but one field is going to be represented by the text box, and the other field is going to be represented by a drop-down. We switch between these sections using a rule, a formatting rule, to hide them. So if we've checked that box, copy existing, then we want to hide the top section. And similarly, if we haven't checked the box, we want to hide the bottom section. So that's pretty easy hide show logic right there. Now, when they do select one of the existing, we have these simple rules to set those values. And we're basically just setting the values based on the secondary data. So we have set up the secondary data to that library. There's data connection, and the data connection is going out and is querying the existing items in that library. And you can see there's the library. And it's pulling those into a secondary data source, which you see here. And the data fields are the title, the expense purpose, the expense total, and so on. If I go back to that library in SharePoint, you'll see that if I refresh this, we should see those two. Okay, come on, SharePoint. Okay, there are the two expense reports that I submitted, and basically it's just pulling the data out of this library table, and it's pulling them into the form, and that's why this is repeating here, because there could be more than one. Now, when we select one, what it's doing is it's going to set the values of the main data source. That's the identification number, the department, the email address, and the job title. We don't need to worry about the name because that's set with the drop-down. And it's going to set it equal to the same field that we're pulling in from that secondary data source, or we're setting it where we filter it based on the name. So this is a very simple, standard kind of thing that you do when you're pulling data in from a secondary data source, is you have a filter on it because you want to select one of the rows in that list. So that's pretty easy. Once again, we will be sending these samples with you as a thank you for the webinar survey feedback. So we'll send you a package later. So that's pretty simple how to do that. Now that's very common. So if you've got like an address and you want to do a bill to, same as the ship to, you could do the same technique. In that case, you wouldn't necessarily need to pull it from an existing library because you might have the data already in the form and you just use rules to copy them. So that's a very simple approach. Now this does not work in the case where you have more complex data. So let's take a look at an example where we have more complex data. And let me just go back to my demo webinar here. So the slide though describes what we just saw, and here are the steps to create it. You need to promote those columns that you want to copy into your library. You need to add the data connection to query it, and then you need to add two sections, one with the type in and one with the drop down. And those are the hide show sections that have those different controls. And then you're using a copy existing to check a checkbox to switch between them. And then you have a rule to query the data, and then rules to copy the data. So it's pretty simple to set up that first demo. So let's look at demo number 2. And this one, I apologize, we had a bug in this a few minutes ago, and so hopefully it'll work. I haven't actually verified it, but I had Jimmy help me. So hopefully we've got that working. Let's just take a look here. Okay, so same form. If I list the previous forms, you can see there they are. And I can click on clone, and let's clone mine. It's going to copy the information into the form. So now in this case, we actually have 2 rows of information here. So it's a very complex kind of a copy, right? Because we're copying it from an existing XML file, which has repeating data at the bottom, into the current one. And so how do we do that? Let's go back to the designer. So this is the top control here. And we're, of course, hiding this if the copy existing is set. And that's, I think, yeah. Well, we're hiding it if we don't have any data from the previous items. So if we've queried the, so we've got 2 buttons here. We've got the list previous, which goes out and queries existing. Same data connection that we're using for the copy existing. So it's going to query, it's going to pull in all those values. And then we show them here in the repeating table. So here are all the previous entries. And then we have a button that allows you to clone an existing entry. Now, how are we doing that? Well, there's a couple QRules commands that we're using. Now, once again, QRules is our plugin for InfoPath. You don't need QRules if you're using Forms Viewer, because Forms Viewer supports 50 of the most common QRules commands. But QRules provides commands to allow you to copy data, to change connection URLs, and do lots of things. Here's one of the commands. It's the change connection URL command. And this command allows you to change the existing connection. So we have another data connection that we're using for the XML. So the query existing, that lists everything in the library, and then get XML is a data connection that actually points to a specific XML file. Now what we do then is we use that to infer the data source. So when we're setting up those data connections, we need to have an example XML so that we can infer this data source, this schema, and this matches the data source for the main data source, and that's important. So the data source for the secondary data connection has to match, because we're going to do a transformation, a one-to-one transformation from one into the other. So here we have set up this to point to some arbitrary XML data, and then when they select another one, we have to change that to the actual correct XML, which we know is the library URL of the form plus the title of the form from that query existing secondary data connection. So we create a new connection URL, and then we go off and we query it. We pull the XML for that form into this form when it's running. Once we have it in the form, now we can transform it, and that transform command is what's going to copy it from the data connection into the main data source. Now that all may sound kind of confusing, but it's actually pretty simple. So this transformation command is another QRules command that you can run, and let me just show you this in a larger format here so you can see it. So the transform command, this is a generic transformation. The only thing that's specific here is the get XML. That's the data connection that we're pulling, and everything else is pretty standard. So you can look into the QRules command transform, and you can look at these different parameters. One of the parameters is an XSLT file. Now this XSLT file is a generic XSLT file that we include with the sample. You can just take it out of the sample and use it in your form. It is, I believe it is generic to any InfoPath form, but it's very easy to create these, and if you need help, let us know. But we do have a resource file with that XSLT in it, and that XSLT is an XML style sheet that transforms from one XML into the other one. This one's actually really generic because they're the same exact XML. So if the XML is the same, the XSLT is actually pretty simple. And I just exported it. Let me show you that real quick. So any questions so far? Let's just take a quick look. Any questions from Dick Penny here at, yes, so Dick, I'll answer your question here in a second. I just want to show you how simple this XSLT is. It's that simple. It's just very, very, this is a very standard XSLT for copying any existing InfoPath form into your existing one. So you can use this XSLT in your form, and it will work just fine because it's very generic. There's nothing specific to our expense report in there. Okay, now we had a couple questions. So that's the second technique, and here's the explanation of how we did it. We're going to move on to the next technique here and talk about the repeating data, but first we've got a couple questions from Dick I want to answer. So Dick's got a question here at 8:04 a few minutes ago. Is there an index of the webinars that are on YouTube? Yes, very quickly then. YouTube, you can go to our YouTube channel. That's probably one easy way to get to it. And you just type in youtube.com/Qdabra, and you'll see all of our webinars up here, including the one from last week. And then you can also go to Qdabra.com, and you can take a look at, we're changing our website. We'll be revising this in the next 2 weeks, but we have a list of all the webinars along with the packages here, and the packages are all free. So that's the index. That hopefully answers your question, Dick. And they stay up indefinitely. They and okay, so that's the first two questions from you. Now, you had another question about this trigger when we trigger the copy to query the secondary. Right. So this copy existing is also querying. When we select copy existing, it goes off and it queries that library to get the existing records. And then, okay, so you're good. Michael has a question. Am I understanding correctly that Qdabra is required for doing this using web forms? So that's a great question, Michael. Thanks for asking it. No, not necessarily. I mean, Forms Viewer is free, and it includes those commands for cloning, the change connection URL and transform. We also have this QRules plugin that you can use. There's a free trial, and it will work with browser-based InfoPath forms. So if you want to use your InfoPath forms with Forms Viewer, you can, and there's no Qdabra. I mean, they're using this open source Forms Viewer tool, which we created for the community. So I guess you could call that us, but we're really not selling it. We're just giving it away. We sell services around it if you need subscriptions or support or something like that, but we don't sell the actual tool. But you do need InfoPath Designer. You need either QRules or that Forms Viewer. And so if you're using InfoPath Form Services on-prem to display forms in the browser, then you will need QRules in the form to do the second technique. First technique I showed works fine out of the box. Hopefully that answered your question. I'm going to move on to the next demo. We've got a couple more demos to go here. About 10 more minutes, maybe 15, depending on questions. So let's go back to the presentation. Let's take a little sip of some water here for a second to clear my voice. Just 1 second. Okay, so I'm back, and the third technique, I'm not going to actually show a demo here, but I want to talk about this. If you're copying data into your form, there's an out-of-box technique for doing this. We did a webinar. We've done actually 2 or 3 webinars on this over the years, including one last year by Jimmy. If you click on this link, and we'll send the slides as well to you, but there is a webinar that Jimmy did around March 20th or so of 2016 that talks about these 4 techniques. So the first technique is out of the box. Don't need anything QRules like or Forms Viewer like for that. And the second technique then is using the insert command is good if you've got less than, say, 50 or so different rows that you're copying. If you've got a large table, you can use copy table or the transform command. And I showed the transform command as part of the clone. So that's a quick sort of shout out to this webinar we did a year ago for copying repeating data. And obviously these techniques work even if the XML source is different from the destination, with the exception of copy table. Copy table, you have to have the same source and destination, but the insert command and the transform command and the default values technique work fine for data transfers when the source and the destination are different. Okay, so I want to show this next example here of a suggestion. You'll remember from the schematic at the beginning, let me just go back to that. This is this technique on the right here. This blue XML form is a child form. We want to push data out of our main form into this blue one. And let me show you in a scenario an example of that. I believe I have it here. So we do training. We have a training class we do every month or so, and it's forms training, advanced training, and here you see our SharePoint training site. It's opening up the same expense report form, I believe, in InfoPath Form Services. So obviously Forms Viewer is a lot faster, and one of the other reasons why we're trying to pitch Forms Viewer to you is that it does open faster and there's no postbacks. But here's the form again, and you can see up in the right-hand corner we have this suggestion box. And if I enter in a suggestion, please add the company logo. Now if I click on Submit Suggestion, what this is actually going to do is it's going to submit the suggestion. Did it work? Maybe it failed. Okay, let me try that again. Sorry, demo failure. Okay, I need to go back to my training site. 1 second. I actually tested this last night and it worked. Sometimes you get SharePoint timeouts, but hopefully the second time will work. Okay, so let's submit a suggestion here, and when it works, what it should do is it should replace this suggestion with a link, and the link is going to be to that child XML form. Now, hopefully, we'll get that here in a second. Okay, there we go. So this actual child XML form, you can see down below, it's a link to the XML data in a different library. So what we've done is we've submitted this suggestion, which is a very simple, it's like one field, to a separate child library. And you could actually make this more complex, but this is a simple example. And if I click on this, this link, it's going to open that form. And in this case, it's actually going to open it up in the filler, but it will work in the browser as well. And now we have this technique documented, and I wanted to show you the documentation we'll provide with the package. So we actually have a lab from our training class that we're going to give you as part of the training today. And this is demo 4, saving suggestions. If you click on this document here, it's going to walk you through how to add that suggestion to your form. The suggestion box is something that is a good best practice because it reduces the support load for your forms. People have a question, they can just add it there. If people call you up and they want to fix something, you can tell them to enter it there and they can quickly capture it. And then you can use that secondary library as your punch list, so to speak, to fix issues with your process, your form. So this document will walk you through how to add it. Now this is also showing how to use an XML template part. So we've actually created, to make this easier for you, we've created a template part that you can add to your form, and it will simplify these steps. But you're still looking at probably a good 15 minutes to walk through this lab. And this is free training for you today as part of this webinar. If we had more time, we'd walk through it. We have actually done this in our training class, so if you're interested, I might be able to send you a link to the walkthrough of this. But you've got the document, and it does work really well, and it explains exactly how to use it. And that's obviously works with SharePoint 2013 on-prem, as well as SharePoint 2010, SharePoint 2016 as well. Okay, so that's the fourth demo. Now the final demo I wanted to show today, and so let's go back to our slides. The final example here is creating links. So a lot of times when you submit a form, you want to send a link so that other people can just click the link and open it. And ideally, the link works in your mobile browser. In other words, you're on the go, you've got a phone that is a smartphone, and you're getting email, and you get an email with a link to a form. You want to be able to just click on the link and approve it or reject it. So this technique is very common. We want to create a link, and the link is going to be then sent an email. Now the link could automatically perform an action on open. You could open the form. We saw a link to do that a moment ago with suggestions. Obviously we need a different kind of a link when we're opening the browser. And we'll be talking about that with this second technique. I really want to focus on the second technique, which is allowing people to quickly approve or reject something. So let's take a look at an example. And we have here, okay, so let me go back to, we have a leave request form, and I'm just going to fill this out. I'm going to take a day of vacation next week. And for those of you that are familiar with this, we've done this demo many, many times before. Here's a leave request form. We've got kind of this desktop versus mobile version here. The mobile version, as you can see, expands a little bit to fit what you would typically see on a mobile form. In other words, depending on your resolution, it's going to look better on a mobile device. But we'll use the desktop version for now. Automatically fills in my information, which is good. I'm going to take some time off. And we have these drop-downs. Drop-downs work a little bit better on the mobile, but they're a little bit strange because you don't know exactly what day of the week they are. So this is not a best practice. But anyway, we're going to fill this out. And the real purpose of filling this out is to see the link that gets sent at the end. And we'll just say we're going to come back on the same day, and that's today, and this is Thursday. We have commands that will automatically detect this. We'll Let's take a personal, we're going to take 4 hours off. And of course, it might complain at the end, but let's just try this. Okay, so obviously I need more than 48 hours notice. That's good. I've got some validation in my form. So let's take off the following week, 31st. And hopefully now it will allow us to do this. Okay, so I'm going to take this 4 hours off next week, and it's generating this form, submitting it back to the library. So that's all very, very common, right? Now we have a workflow that is running on this library, and this workflow is very simple. It is simply sending an email if the item is pending. I mean, I actually, maybe I clicked on the wrong workflow. Let me go back. So it's a leave request email notification. That's it right there. And if we edit this workflow, you'll see that we've got 3 conditions. If it's submitted, we're going to email the manager, and then we're going to email the person who created the form. If it's approved, we email the manager, and if it's rejected, we email back to the person who submitted it, I believe. Well, both the created by and the manager, so emailing both of them with the same message. Let's look at this top email. So this email we're sending is going to actually contain a link to either approve or reject the form with just one click. And I'm actually going to, I can't show you my mobile phone, but this works really well on a mobile phone. And if we look at the link here, you'll see that this link is actually pointing to a link that opens the form on the mobile device. Now the one really cool thing we can do with Forms Viewer is we can actually allow them to approve it externally without even logging in to 365 or to SharePoint. So let's take a look at my email. Let's see if I got that in request here, and there it is right here. So that's the email I just received from that workflow. Now if I just click here on Approve Request Externally, it's going to automatically open up the form and approve it. And the way we do that is we're passing a parameter to the form that is, please approve it. So it's basically, when we click on the link itself contains a parameter. Let's take a look at this again here. That is going to automatically approve the form on open. So that's what we call the approval parameter here. So this link here is a link to open the form in Forms Viewer. It also, so there's a current ID, that's the form that we're opening, and then we're tacking on these 2 commands at the end. One of them is the approval one, which the form is going to read. The form is going to open up, it's going to check to see if it's got an approval parameter, and if it does, it will automatically run some rules to approve the form. And we're also opening it up externally, so that app only equals true is the external switch. If I took that off, it would be the same as just opening it up with authentication, which is the previous link here, I believe. And you'll see that this one just has the approval at the end of it. So, so that's how we do it. Now in the form itself, if we go to the form, and let me just go to our 365 site and quickly show you the form. We have our leave request form. Now since it's been approved, we're not actually, we don't have it here anymore because it's approved. If I go to site contents, I can download the XSN from the library, or I can download it from Forms Viewer. We have it working. Forms Viewer works side by side with the existing form services, so you don't have to worry about switching over anything. You can have them running side by side. But when you're in Forms Viewer, we have this Manage Templates page, and you can see that we got a lot of sample forms in here, including the leave request form that I just showed you. This form here, I can download it and show exactly how this is working. I'm going to actually save this out to the library that I'm going to use to create the package to send you as webinar goodies, webinar swag. And I'm going to open this form in the browser and show you what it looks like here. And once again, the key thing with this form is I believe there's 2 forms we're actually using for this solution. The leave request form, which you can see here, and And the leave request form has a command. Is this the one I'm trying to think here? So this form actually is getting that property. Okay, so this is actually just detecting whether it's on mobile or not. So this is the request form. We also have another form that we're actually using for the approval, and that's called the manager form, the leave request. I believe it's the leave request. There's a manager version, manage leave request. Here we go. So manage leave request is the form that's actually being opened in that second case. I should not have opened the first one, but I guess it's important to show both because this is an example of a form that's mobile enabled, and it's detecting on open whether or not it's opened from a mobile device or not, and it's going to switch to that mobile screen if it is. Okay, so let's take a look at this leave request form. It's the manager one. So the link is actually pointing to a different form that's going to open up, and this form is going to run some logic on open, and when it loads, it's going to actually query to see if it's going to get the input parameters, it's going to get that approval key, and then it's going to check the value. And if the value is equal to approved, let's see, where is it here? If it's not equal to approved, it's going to submit the data to that library to show that it's rejected. Otherwise, it's going to submit the data to show that it's approved. So this form is actually updating the list for the original form when it sees that approved status. So the link sends this parameter, the manage form opens up, it checks to see what was sent. If it's approved, it goes out and it updates the original library to show the item as approved. And it's using a mapping to do that. So it's a little more complex, but I wanted to show that technique. And if you've got questions, both of these forms will be included in the package, and you can also reach out to us and just ask us any questions you have. We're here to help. We have questions. So Donald's got a question. Links and emails pointing to a filler form record are different than from a web form. Correct. And they do change if you're using FormsViewer. So that was your question. So that's a great question. If you're using browser-based forms, which everyone is now, you're going to use a link that looks, let me show you what the form looks like in SharePoint Designer again. So these links here are pointing to FormsViewer, and essentially what it's doing is it's very similar to what you do if you're using InfoPath Form Services. And this is, of course, a provider-hosted app, so it's you have to be authenticated to your site to get it, but it's pulling in the data and then it's setting that approved status. If it's not FormsViewer, it looks, it's got that form server, it's got the SharePoint version of that. And the way to get that is just to open an existing one in the browser. In fact, I think we have one that's already open here. I want to say, where do we put it here? Well, you just basically open this one here, and you can see at the bottom of the screen there's a link. And these are opening actually in the forms here, but there's the other library I had a moment ago had the browser-based version. So I think that to answer your question, these forms here that open in the browser, you're going to just copy this link here at the top to use as your base. And this has this form server thing in it. If you look, this form server.aspx, XSN location, and so on. And that you'll use that link to open up the forms in the browser. So hopefully that answered your question. Thanks, Donald, for that. And yeah, I just want to shout out once again, we are doing these webinars every week, and next week we're going to be looking at how to improve load times. If you've got a lot of data connections, sometimes forms will load slower. We're going to show you some techniques for consolidating data connections and making your forms open faster. And we've got Mel Clemente who's going to be doing that with me next week, hopefully. We appreciate you being here. Thanks for showing up. Michael, you've got one more question here. Didn't demo writing to a secondary list, but at a high level, what techniques can be used to write data to another list? Yeah, so the high level, to map, that last demo actually did update a list. There are two ways to write to lists today. High level, you can use the QRules command submit SharePoint list, which is the most popular QRules command because everyone wants to do the technique that you're interested in. And that handles mapping data from your InfoPath form to a list. It's very easy to use because it comes with the mapping. We've done tons of webinars on this topic. Just go up to Qdabra.com and search for the webinars. And in fact, let me show you where they are again. Where are they? Where's my Qdabra website here? If you go to Qdabra.com and look at our webinar log, and just search for submitting to list. And also on InfoPath Dev, you can also find lots of blog posts on this technique. It is the most commonly requested extension for InfoPath. Now, and that's the QRules technique. Of course, if you're using Forms Europe, you don't need QRules. It'll work out of the box. If you don't want to use QRules and you can't use Forms Europe, then you can use the technique, a CAML technique. CAML stands for Collaborative Application Markup Language. It's a SharePoint technique for updating lists. It works great on-prem. I don't think it works anymore in the cloud. So it was working up until the end of 2016 or so, and Microsoft has changed things. And so if you're using a 365 site, that CAML technique will not work. You're going to want to use Forms Viewer. But if you're using on-prem, you can do it. So Mick Thornton, yes, great. I'm glad that you're excited about Mel's webinar next week. I haven't even told her she's doing it, so hopefully she'll be there. Yeah, so in the cloud then, Michael, just install Forms Viewer, and you've got it working for you. And Forms Viewer is faster than InfoPath, and it's free. And if you want to download it, you just go to infopathdevcom, click on Downloads, and in the far right-hand corner here, you'll see the Forms Viewer, and you can download the app, install it, and your forms will work just fine with QRules commands in them, even if you don't have QRules, and you can map your data to lists with that. And you saw me do it in that last demo with the leave request form. Under the covers, it was doing that. So that's it for this week. I really appreciate you being here with us, and we look forward to having you next week. We'll get the YouTube video up in a few hours and send the package out to anyone who fills out the survey. It's just a quick survey, 5 questions. We really appreciate your feedback.